So today is Chulin Nun Zayin. We're going to start Daf Nun Vav and Beis by the Mishnah. Ve'eluk sheres boif. Ve'eluk sheres boif. Nikvo hagageres. Let's say the gageres was perforated, got a hole, but it wasn't cut. Oisha nistika. Nistika means it sliced the long way. He saw chulda al roisha makom she'ena isa treifa. If let's say the chulda bit it in a place where it would not make it a treifa, the marshal, we just got started. Yeah, so here's hiksa chulda al roisha for chulda bit it on the head, the bird makom she'ena isa treifa, but in a place which would not make it a treifa. Or nikev hazefek. The zefek is the crop. Is that place that we said the holding place of a bird. A bird has a place. The bird doesn't chew. It swallows everything whole. Everything, whatever it could get into its mouth, it swallows whole, and then it slowly lets it get into the stomach. Rabbi Yomer, afilu nitel. Afilu nitel. That means that even if the whole zefik was removed, it's still not a treifa. Yotzu. Now yotzu ben. Yeah. We'll see what the problem is. What exactly is the problem? That's a big shiloh. What is the psul of like the Tanakh nitel zefik? And the Gemara is going to say even Rebbe there's a problem. The question is it a chelik of the vesher or is it a chelik of the keres? Is it somehow a stomach or not? Yeah, okay. So the Gemara writes, Rabbi, I'm afilonito. Okay. Yotzu b'nei meyeho. Let's say the b'nei me'ayin went out of the body, v'loy nikvu, but they didn't get a hole. Or nishtabru gafeho. We'll see. It's a machlokes rishonim what gafel is, but no. I'm sorry. This is clear what gafel is. Gafel is the big feathers, the big large feathers on its wings were broke. Or nishtabru ragleo, its feet broke. Again, that will be on the bottom. We'll see. The Gemara is going to talk about it. Or nimritu kinafeha. Nimritu kinafeha means that if let's say these I'm sorry, Nachamo. Nishtabru gafel, Rashi says is if the bones in the wings broke. Nishtabru raglo is if the legs broke. Yeah, we're going to see be'ez Hashem what we're talking about. If we're talking which bones we're talking about, we're going to see that there's the so Nachamo. Nishtabru gafel is the bones of the wing. Nishtabru raglo is its legs. Now, which legs are we talking about? We are talking about we're talking about the two bones that we discuss is the thigh and the one below the thigh, which is what we have, which is the thigh is the pulka. And the thigh is not the pulka, is the part that's attached to the pulka, and then there's the pulka. So nishtabu ragleo is the pulka broke, that bone broke, and or even lamaila from the pulka, but as long as it didn't go out of its place. We'll see Be'ez Hashem much more about these things and about the arkuva and what is the arkuva. Machlokes Rashi is actually in today's blad shtickle, but it's really more in Be'ema Makasha. We're going to discuss it. But anyway. What exactly nishtab raglo is? Nimritu knafel. It's also fine. Nimritu knafel, meaning that the feathers were plucked out. It's no problem. Rabbi Yehuda that what? Rabbi Yehuda argues it depends which kind of feathers are we talking about? Are we talking about the big large feathers that it has on its wings that has Rashi says that have in it the stick? They have in it the kanim that right that that's what the sefer uses, right? That part of those feathers are fine, but the noitza, the down that's very close to the bird, that the bird uses for warmth, and it needs it for warmth, and if not, it's going to die, and therefore it is psula like Rabbi Yehuda. That's the Mishnah. Yeah. We're going to see much more about this in Amud Beis. So the Gemara writes, Ton Rabbanon, Ma'aseh Rab Simai v'Rab Tzadok, Shalchula b'Shana belo went to go be ma'abashana in Lod. V'shavsu ba'oinoi v'hoiru b'tar pachas kirebi b'zefek. This is the Kabbalah, that they hoiru b'tar pachas kirebi b'zefek. Rebbe Bezefek, we know in our Mishnah that what? The Rebbe said that if you, even if the whole Zefek is removed, it's fine. Now, what does it mean? B'tar pachas ki Rebbe Bezefek. What does that mean? So the Gemara has a suffix. Ibayilahu hoiru b'tar pachas li'isura ki Rebbe Bezefek le'teira. Does it mean like this? Is it two things? Hoiru b'tar pachas. First of all, they made a psak b'tar pachas, even though they had, what's the tar pachas? The tar pachas is the womb is the womb, right? So is the pshat is hoiru b'tar pachas. First of all, that's one thing. That they made a psak by the tar pachas, meaning not like everybody else held, but that was the li'isura. And ki Rebbe Bezefek, meaning that they were that they were matir that as well. They will matter that as well, and it's two things: hoiru b'tar pachas, and then kirebi v'zefek. Or dilma hoiru b'tar pachas la'teira kirebi v'zefek. Or they were matter by tar pachas, just like Rebbe is matter b'zefek. Avo kirebi v'zefek l'srilu. But maybe they were only matter leheter. They were only matter by tar pachas lehetera. But when it comes to kirebi v'zefek, they were not matter. So the Gemara, Teiku, we don't know. Teiku, yeah, that's the end of that Gemara. Now Tosfos this is how Rashi's goes in the sugya, and Tosfos is very bothered by it because there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, and the Gemara in Sanhedrin says that originally. Because that originally Reb Tarfon was asered by Tapachas, and they asked the kasha from Tudush Ishroini. Tudush Ishroini came. Tudush Ishroini or somebody else, Roifei. Tudush Roifa. I think it was Tudush Roifa. So somebody came up with a study that it seems like there was all animals from Alexandria Mitzrayim. Alexandria Mitzrayim were trying to protect their cartel, and what they would do was they would remove the womb from all the animals that left Mitzrayim, because they wanted to make sure that nobody else is going to start competing with them, is going to start raising animals. So therefore, all the animals that they would export, they would remove the tarpachas. Is a raya that you don't need tarpachas, that it's not a treif, right? So Zok Tosfos, how could there be a havamina that what? The Gemara in Sanhedrin says so stark that it's a mistake to say it's a treifa with a tarpachas, that not only that, the Gemara says that it's like a tabed var mishnah. What do you mean a tabed var mishnah? How can it be a tabed var mishnah? What does it mean it's a tabed var mishnah? It means it's a terrible, it's for sure a mistake. Nobody holds that tarpachas li'isura. So how could there be a havmin in our Gemara? The Gemara is going to say teku about the tarpachas li'isura. That's the kasha that Tosfos asks on Rashi. And Tosfos has a whole different girsa, and he wants to say we're not talking about tapachas we're not talking about tapachas of a behem, we're talking about tapachas of a oif, and it's a little different. And yeah, Tosfos has a different mahalach. That's about Tosfos legabe Tosfos kasha. What's the eitzah for Rashi? That there should be a havamina, that the tapachas is osir. So maybe you could say it like this. I'll say it like this. Maybe a shtickle yishuv for Rashi, like this. The Gemara has a suffix. Did he say tapachas li'isura like Reb Tarfon and Kerev bezefik la'teiro? Or Idoma Hayru b'tapachas la'teiro Kerev bezefik, right? Now, there's two differences, right? Did they say tapachas li'isura and Kerev bezefik ke'teira, right? Right? Or did we say b'tapachas le'teira, that just like Rebbe was matir bezefik, but they didn't talk about Rebbe bezefik? right? So there's two differences. The first lashon was was being asering tarpachas, and the second lashon is being matir tarpachas. And the first lashon is being matir by zefek, and the second lashon is not talking about zefek. So Rashi could say Teiku is on the second part. On the first part, the Gemara in Sanhedrin was miyashiv. Avad the Gemara in Sanhedrin was miyashiv. That what? That we're matir by tarpachas. But our Gemara will bring it down for the Shalom of Kirebi v'Zefek. Did they say Hoyru b'Tarpachas L'Isura u'Kirebi v'Zefek le'Teira, and they were matir like Rebbe, or they were Hoyru le'Teira b'Tarpachas Kirebi v'Zefek, and like the Gemara fears Zois, Avu Kirebi v'Zefek le'Sviralu, and we don't have a psak for Kirebi v'Zefek. Take on the Kirebi v'Zefek. Amar Rab, Vitem Rabbi Shua B'Levi, Gagoy shel Zefek nidan kiveshet. What's Gagoy shel Zefek? The top of the Zefek is nidan kiveshet. Heicha Amar Bibi Barabaya Kol shenimtach imoi. Everything that gets smaller and thinner and schlepped with it. Now, what exactly does this mean? The lashon of Rashi is mimakim shu maschel limashich letzad aveshet lies beitzav ahoylech. So the Sichas Chulin is medayik that there's a gevaldige machlokes rishonim in which part we're talking about. Let me bring up the Sichas Chulin 1 second. This is a regular nitel hazefek, a simple case. Yeah, the zefek was removed. However, when the Gemara says Gagoy shel Zefek, what's Gagoy shel Zefek? So over here, Zok the Sichas Chulin, he's medayik that it's a gevaldige machlokes Rashi and the Riva, because Rashi is mashma mimokim shu maschel li moshech letzad aveshet lies meitzer v'hoylech, right? So the lashon of Rashi is mimokim shu maschel li moshech letzad aveshet. Why? What does Rashi mean letzad aveshet? It's a little bit mashma that we're referring to this area, right? And not we're talking about this. So why is it called Gagoy shel Zefek? Why is it called Gagoy shel Zefek? Because the lashon of Gagoy shel Zefek is a little bit more mashma like this, like the Riva. But here the lashon of Rashi is mimakim shu maschel li moshech letzad haveshet lies meitzav v'hoylech. It's a little bit mashma like the Sichas Chulin. But the only problem is, I mean, Mechet Tesa, why should this be a problem and this not be a problem? Right? Mm-hmm. The teretz is, right? Even right? So what does it mean, Letzad Aveshet? So maybe it just means that when it's Mashach Lamayla to there. I don't know. Maybe it could be Madcha, the Lashon that he also means like the Riva. But that's the Shaila, that's the Machlekes, that's what he wants to tie now. Okay, let's go weiter. Sagt die Gemara, what's the next shtickle? Oh, gewaltig. Sagt die Gemara weiter, Yatsu b'nei Me'ah. Amar Shmuel by Yitzchak. So if the b'nei Me'ayim just spilled out, the whole guts came out, right? So we said it's not a problem. That if he didn't turn them over, if he turned them around, it turned them over, the top bottom is a treifa. Now, yeah. Remind me to tell you of Machlekes Rabbeinu Gershom and Rashi L'chura. T'chsev hu asecha vayichoinenecha. He created you, and he vayichoinenecha. So we darshin vayichoinenecha is a lashon of a kan, a lashon of a foundation. In other words, that the Eibishter created every single part of us, and he also created for every single thing its foundation. It's the thing that's its base, and therefore, if you're going to turn them over, so things are going to be off their base, they're not going to be able to live. So that's the treifa. Tanya, and the shaila is if this Gemara shtim is a hemshech or not a hemshech. Tanya, you're a me'oimem. Hu oscha vayichoinenecha. Karcha the Kula Bay. Knesset Yisrael is a Karcha the Kula Bay. A city, Karcha is a walled city, the Kula Bay that includes everything. Completely self-contained. Mimenu Koyanov. It gets its own Koyanim. Mimenu Neviov, Mimenu Sorov, Mimenu Malchov. Shenema, Mimenu Pina, Mimenu Yoseit. This is the marshal is from a house that was built. It has its own cornerstone. It has its own Yeseidos. It has everything is from within. Right? So the Maharsha wants to know. What do we need a shenemar for? What do we need the pasuk for? Mimenu pana, mimenu pina, mimenu yaseid. L'chura, it's a mefurish pasuk. It's mefurish psukim that Klal Yisrael that avada. It's mikerev achecha tasma lecha melech and navi mikirbecha and kahanim is Aaron HaKohen got it. So what do we need? What's the pasuk being moisif by this pasuk of mimenu pina? Mimenu pina, mimenu yaseh, mimenu keshes, milchama, mimenu yetze kol noiges yachtov. What's the pasuk in Zechariah that's saying that everything is coming that everything is coming from Klal Yisrael, and Klal Yisrael doesn't get rulers that come from other nations. We take care of it ourselves. We're self-contained. What are we being moist from the pasuk in Zechariah? Yeah, that's what the Maharsha says. So the Maharsha asks. So the Maharsha that it's true, that it's true that you don't have other psukim, but who says it's a mila? From this pasuk that says mimenu pina, mimenu yaset, mimenu kesh is a raya that it's a mila to be self-contained. Yeah, I want to be moist of a shtickle to the Maharsha, and I want to say based on current events that it's not just a raya, it's a mila. It's explaining what the mila is. What's the mila? The mila is that if you don't have to come on to anybody else, so memela that gives you a tremendous amount of strength. If you don't have to wait for America to send missiles, if you don't have to wait for somebody else's okay, if you could just act on your own interests, so memela it gives you it explains what the strength is. Medu yetze kol noiges yachtov memela we will be able to, and we also have a tremendous amount of solidarity for the fact that we're in this together, and that's the lashon of Rav Meir. Rav Meir says, Kracha de kulaba. What's a kracha de kulaba? Kracha is bedafka. He used bedafka. It's a walled city. So you're much stronger if you could keep the wall together. If you have to breach the wall and you have to open up the wall to let in somebody in, so then you're gonna lose a weakness. That's what he's saying. It's a kracha de kulaba. We could fortify the outside, and memela we're Klal Yisrael has that strength that we're self-contained completely, and we don't have to open up our walls to acquire, to get other leaders or other weapons or whatever it is, and therefore that gives us a tremendous amount of strength. Sok the Gemara. Yeah, that's the end. That's that story. So, but Avada, we're learning it from the same drasha of Hu Asach that he didn't just create you, but he gave you the foundations, and all these roles are also Givaldiga roles. There's another interessant. I just think it's so. It may be a little bit midrashic, but it's a valdiga machshava that the Chassam Sofer wants to say. He wants to shtel to the two pshatim. The two pshatim. The first one, which is talking about the intestines turning over, and the other one about mimenu kran of mimenu nevi of mimenu sarov. So he says that they're related. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of a drash, but he says the pshat is that what's the problem? That if it gets turned over, if it gets a little bit upside down, it's a problem, right? Zok the Maharsha, and that's the thing, that if the Kohen wants to be a Navi, or the Navi wants to be a Sar, or if the Melech wants to be a Kohen, or he wants to sit and learn, and if he doesn't take care of his role, that's also going to be a problem. That the pshat is that you can't be nepach, you can't be mahapach the yotzers. That's what he talked the Maharsha. Okay, and there's some sefer. Okay, so the Gemara weiter. Who Arma? There was an Arma. Now this Gemara is very, very much used. But again, a machlokes the gabi achizas einayim. We're just going to point that out and we'll run quickly. Who arma the chazila who gavra? There was an arma, which is obviously an Armenian, by the way, a little bit also current events because there's shmuz about the chazila who gavra the nafel migrulara. He fell from a roof and he fell down to the ground. Pake krese, and his stomach busted open, and vinafik maine, and his guts spilled out. I say libre. So this Arma was a very clever guy. He brought the son of the person who's all spilled out in over there on the street, and he brought this guy's son. V'shachte kamei ba'achuzas einayim, and he killed him as if he was ba'achuzas einayim. Right? And shachte kamei ba'achuzas einayim. And what happened was, once this guy with his guts spilling out, he saw that the guy was all he thought that his son was died. So isnach, so he gave a big sigh, and by giving a big sigh, all lemaine his that was the kind of muscle that he had to pull for his intestines to just to slip right back in, and he sewed it up. He didn't want to touch the stomachs because he might turn it up. He might turn it upside down. So therefore, he made this other trick to make it that it should be able to sleep in, slip right in. And the shaila is, what's the halacha about achuzas einayim? If there's a lot of Torah, if this is a raya, if this is a raya lahatir, that achuzas einayim is mutter, if it's not mutter, if achuzas einayim derech kishif, shloi derech kishif, all different. There's a lot of Torah about achuzas einayim. What's the story if somebody wants to do a sleight of hand? If that's a problem or not? There's a lot of Torah, and this is one of the big makairis. And there are those who want to bring a raya over here, lekan or lekan. First of all, that it could be that is a raya that it's a good thing what he did. But midach kisa, the shaila is why did he do why does the Gemara emphasize that it was an Arma that did it? L'chura it's pikuach nefesh, and l'chura it should have been mutar it's pikuach nefesh to go do this, right? From the fact that the Gemara doesn't say the Gemara emphasized that it was a goy. If says maybe a yid can't do it, why can't he do it? Maybe because achuzas einayim is also even when it comes to pikuach nefesh. There's a lot of Torah about this. So I want to say one kinech over here. I just want to be most of one thing. What's the halacha? Yeah. First of all, it's a machlokes Rashi and Tosfos. What's the halacha where it says shlo yehapech behem? What does it mean shlo yehapech behem? So Rashi says shlo yehapech behem. Make sure you don't turn them over. But obviously, if you don't turn them over, it's fine, right? Right. But Rebbeinu Gershom says that you have to do this trick. Make sure not to bring it in biyad, because if you're going to bring it in biyad, shloi hipich behem, k'loyma sheben adam loy naga behem, v'nichnesu me'atzmam b'mei'el, that they went in by themselves b'mei'el, right? Azoi zogt Rebbeinu Gershom. L'chur Rebbeinu Gershom is tiny eisen, because the Gemara is mashma from the Arma wanted to not even touch it because he was afraid that he was going to turn it over, right? So what's the machlokes over here? So I want to say a very interesting machlokes. Who says you b'chlal have to be machnesit? The Mishnah says, what does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, Yatzu b'nei Me'el, right? Yatzu b'nei Me'el. That's one of the things. The v'loy nikvu. Now, what happens if it's Yatzu v'loy nikvu and they never put it back in? What will be the halacha? Yeah, l'chura it's not a problem, right? So who says it's b'chlal pikuach nefesh by in that case of the Arma? Who says it was pikuach nefesh? This guy did it. but it's not pekuach nefesh. The guy could live very nicely with his bnei ma'ayim sticking out, right? So it's not pekuach nefesh like Rashi could be. Rebbeinu Gershom seems to hold that it has to come in. That nichnesu mi'atzmam b'me'el, that they have kloim b'shem adam le'nogabem v'nichnesu mi'atzmam b'me'el, and they went in by themselves. If they didn't go in, let's say they stuck out, stayed out like that, then Rebbeinu Gershom was mashma, it would be a problem. I don't think Rashi says that. Rashi says just make sure you don't turn it over, but as long as you don't turn it over, it's good. Okay, Zok Gemara weiter. Here comes the big sugya of the birds' lungs, and maybe we should make a Agdama. Maybe we should make a Gevaldig Agdama of two fundamental differences in between the lungs and the rib cage of birds and the lungs of every other animal. Every animal, we know what happens with the rib, what happens with the lungs. What happens with the lungs is that the lungs expand and the lungs deflate. That's how it pulls in new air, and then it deflates, and it the lungs of a bird are completely different. Yeah, this is very important for the portion of the Shakavataya, the Sugya, and a lot of chedushim that come out from this. A bird's the Eibishter made, and again, that's all the gevaldige hashkacha that we see by all animals. You see exactly that the Eibishter created every single thing specially mamish for its needs. So a bird, instead of having a lung that the whole lung is going to expand and not going to expand, that would takes up a lot of space. A bird has to fly, right? So the Eibishter made that the bird has only a tiny, tiny, tiny lung, and it doesn't expand. It stays in one place. It doesn't get bigger and smaller. What happens? It has air sacs around it that they open and close. So let me show you a picture. 1 second. A picture from the Sefer, what's called Chulin Illuminated, right? So he has, if you see, instead of having a big lung that gets bigger and smaller, no, it has a tiny, tiny lung. This lung is immovable. It doesn't get bigger or smaller. It's just here, a tiny little thing. And then there's air sacs all over throughout the body that they expand and they get smaller. Instead of having a whole lung that expands and gets smaller, it's a tiny, tiny lung, but the air sacs are behind it, and the air comes through and it gets folded up into the thing, and it's true that it only gets absorbed in the body in the lungs, but the lungs don't move. And Lamaisa, these lungs are much the blood vessels and the amount of oxygen that it takes in is 10 times the amount of a human or all the other animals, because all the other animals that the whole thing expands, the whole thing is full of air, etc. Over here it's very, very small and very, very effective and very small, and then it has the air sacs all over the place. That's one groisa shinoi in between a bird and all other animals. That's one important chilik. There is another chilik, which is that the shape of the ribs. The ribs that are always protecting the lungs, by us are flat, right? By them, they're not flat, fakert. They're standing up. Let's see if I can find the picture real quick. Here in the Sichas Chulin, he shows the difference. This is an animal's one rib, right? So it's laying flat, and that's how it protects the area, right? It lays flat, and the ray is here. Mashenke by a bird, it doesn't lay flat; it lays sideways, and here's the ray. You see, the ray is here. But the thing is not flat. It's like this. Yeah, gavaldic difference in between the raya of a bird and the raya of an animal. Okay, Zok Gemara weiter. Let's go. Zok Gemara. Nishtabu ragleo. What happens if the ragleo broke? Nishtabu ragleo. That's what's going on. Hahut sana de inkuri. A tzara de inkuri. A basket of something inkuri. So Rashi brings down two pshatim. Either inkuri means that it had broken foot, and that's what inkuri means. Lashon of inkuri is a lashon of it was like poked, like something carved out. So either inkuri is being used because it's broken, or Rashi says inkuri means it looks like it was carved out. Why? Rashi says because it's a bird that's black and only had a white blotch on the top, on its forehead, and Rashi says kigoin the pinturo be'era zois mehem, and there are those that say Rashi means this bird. I have a picture of it. The only problem is that if he does it, he's just using it as a mashal because this bird does not seem to be a kosher bird. This Eurasian coot, which I mean, if he means this, so this looks like inkuri taka. It looks like it was like the head is like carved out, yeah. But if it means this doesn't. This sounds like a bird that's come out of bird of prey. I don't know. If, it doesn't sound like it's a kosher bird. Rashi is not being mefarish that this is what they were eating in the story of our Gemara. Rashi just saying it was such a kind of a bird. Okay, so the Gemara right. Anyway, v'sanegei owns that's the kamei the Rava. Badke Rava b'tzoymes had gidim v'achshavei. Now, here's Tzoymes Hagidim is the big sugya, and it's really this is the first time that we're going to have it in this sugya. But let's talk about real quickly what's the Tzoymes Hagidim Pashtus Leit Rashi, and then we'll talk about and we'll leave most of it for the next parak. 1 second. Leit Rashi, this is the Tzoymes Hagidim over here. This is the Tzoymes Hagidim. Rashi says Tzoymes Hagidim is where it comes together, where it starts coming together. Tzoymes, that's what tzoymes, like we use nowadays, a intersection, right? So tzoymes is over here. This is like Rashi the tzoymes hagidim, which is right here on a cow, right? And that's what the Gemara always says. Chaytcha mikan. Even if you cut it over here, it's fine. But over here, it's going to be a problem. If you cut a little higher, then it's no problem because right. We're going to see the Gemara is going to say Mashenkin. If you cut over here, nechtechu ragla, it's no problem. But if you cut over here, the tzoymes hagidim is a problem. Yeah, that's the tzoymes hagidim. Now by oif, it's even more complicated because oif and stamazay. I heard this from Rabboni Machshir. The tzoymes hagidim over here by animals, it's kemat never broken. Not only is it kemat never broken, it's extremely strong to the point that this is the place where they hang up all animals. Everybody, Yidden, Goyim, in Chazal, everything, they always use this as the hook. They always have hooks, and they hang up the animal from the hind legs by this area. They chop this piece off, and they hang up over here. This is extremely strong connection over here. That's how it is by animals. And kemat never that you find that it should be nechtechu the tzoymes hagidim. By shenga by the oifis, it's very, very, very motzui, and that is and the other difference by oifis is that oifis has more than a few. We're going to see the Gemara they have like 2, 3, but the by oifis there's I think 13. By oifis here's the tzoymes hagidim. So now here's all these gidim. Now if these gidim, right, you know where this is, the bottom of the polka. If this is ripped, then this is a problem of nechtechu tzoymes hagidim, right? That is the issue. If it's this one or that one, the Gemara is going to say, Be'ez Hashem, we're going to learn much more about it. But that's the Gemara about tzoymes hagidim. So Rava was boidik b'tzoymes hagidim. The Gemara right, boidik Rava b'tzoymes hagidim. Yeah, the achsherei. He was and he was machsheret. The tzoymes hagidim was no problem. Amar b'damaram shmutas yad bebehema ksheira. If the yad of a behema, meaning the front hand, was dislocated, it's ksheira. Now, shmutas yarach bebehema treifa. The question is, the Rashash is matmiya that these parentheses in our Gemara, because l'chura, he says it's brought, the Rif and the Rambam bring it down, it's l'chura part of our Gemara. I would just maybe be more that Lamaisa, our Gemara brought it from, I think, from B'Shem Ilfa, I think. This was Ilfa's thing. We never brought it back B'Shem Rav, and that's why the Gemara, that's why they took it, maybe they put it in the parentheses. But anyway, Shmutas Yerach Ba'oif Treifa. This is our Shmuz. Our Sugi is Shmutas Yerach Ba'oif Treifa. That what? Right? A bird doesn't have yadayim. It only has legs, right? It doesn't have hands, right? In other words, it doesn't have front legs. It only has a yerech. And if the yerech is shamut, ba'oif is treifa. Where is that place? That is, right, everybody knows. We all know a bottom, right? You know a bottom, right? So you have the pulka, and then you have the other part, the thigh, right? That's the thigh. And then there's that other piece. That other piece. What's that other piece? That's a piece of the back of the spine. If the back of the spine is separated from the thigh bone, that is a problem. That's called shmutas yarech ba'oif. That's our sugya, right? You got the which case which part? Shmutas yarech ba'oif treifa. Shmutas gaf ba'oif treifa. If let's say the shmutas gaf, if let's say the gaf bone, what's the gaf bone? Is treifa. Now Rashi learns that the gaf is the bone of the wing. But the problem is the next line of the Gemara. Chayshinon shema nikva hareya. We're afraid that if let's say the gaf bone was pulled out, we're afraid shema nikva hareya. So what? So here's a machlokes. Yeah. What are we talking about when we say shmutas hagaf? So Rashi says that the shmutas hagaf means, right? What are we talking about? We're talking about right? But Rashi says we're talking about this. The problem is we're talking about the wing. The problem is it's not so close to the reya. What do you mean shema nikva reya? What are we choishish for? That's the problem. Zog the other rishonim like the Rajbu, the Imei, that we're talking about this bone over here, and the place can call it the etzem daka kesakin hamanachas b'tzidei areya. It's that white, like a thin. I think it's like a white. I'm not sure exactly which one. I'm not so familiar with tops. But anyway, that's what. And that if that comes off, it's gonna perforate the reya. That's the pshat. Now the shaila is like Rashi. What's this? Well, Rashi and Tosfos that say that it means this. What's gonna have to do with the reya? So zok the sichas chulin, zok the chulin illuminated, and this is the big machlokes. They want to say a massive chiddush. They want to say that since we just shall avek that the reya of a oif is different, that it has these ear sacs. And Zog and Zay, if you look at the air sacs, there's an air sac that comes into this bone. And they want to be mechadish a gavaldige chiddush, that there'll be a problem of areya, of nikva hareya by a oif, even in the air sacs. That's a gavaldige chiddush. It's a velt chiddush. Now, lemaisa, we don't check the reya of oif. So memela, it's not so negate. In other words, we don't check if there's a problem. There's a problem. But this will be miyashiv, this shaila of how could it be that this is Shem Nikva Reya the Teretz is we're afraid of what? We're afraid of the ear sacs. That's what the Achronim want to say. Yeah. Givaldik. Okay, not in the Reya itself, but in the okay. Zok the Gemara right. Yeah, Vishmul Amar Tibodik. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yochanan Tibodik. You should check it. Now, over here, the Rashash is Matmiyah. The Rashash is Matmiyah. This is also the same Metzias. When it says Tibadek over here, so over here Rashi says, how you boidik the Reya? So Rashi says, you know how you're going to be boidik the Reya? And he actually brings a picture. What's the name makes a picture? The Sichas Chulin makes a picture. Rashi says, when you know how you boidik the reya, I'll tell you, you're machnis l'soichoi kana, dak bigageres, and that's how evenoifich bereya, right? So the question is, you see how he's machnis l'soichoi kana and yunoifich bereya. So the kasha is, the shaila is, Frekter Hashash, why did Rashi over here say Machnas L'Seicha Kana? We've been checking reyes already for the whole parak already. Yeah, we're checking it already for weeks. All of a sudden Rashi is telling you have to be Machnas L'Seicha Kana. What's going on over here? Dr. Rashash Gavaldi Chiddush. He says that there is a halacha. There's a halacha. There are those that say that when you boidik a ray, again, it's not negate. We don't pass like that. We don't check the rays. But if you check the ray of oif, it has to be inside the bird. All other rays, you take it out and then you check it. By the bird, you have to check it in. You have to check it inside. Zokted. That's why it says machnas l'soichay reya, because you're trying to get it into the bird without touching the bird. Azay Zokter Rashash. Zokter Sichas Chulin, and this is partially that we have to explain. Everybody can understand why is this halacha that the ray has to be checked only when it's inside the oif. Because if you're going to take out the ray, you're going to mess up the air sacs. Gewaldig. Yeah, very geschmack. That's why it has to dafke be with the ray inside. Okay, Zokti more weiter. Let's move on. This is going to be a big problem in the sugya, a massive problem in the sugya. Pashut the taich of this Gemara. Chizkiya said, "Ein reya b'oif." Oif does not have a lung, and then Rabbi Yochanan answered back. For Rabbi Yochanan, Oma yesh lo yeshna kol shalveret ben agafayim. It has, and it's a small. It's very small. It's like a little, like the leaf of a like the patel. Like a rose petal, yeah. V'yeshton ka'ol shalveret bein agafayim, in between its wings. My ein rei lo'if. So what does Chizkiya mean when he says ein rei lo'if? What does he mean ein rei lo'if? Ein leimed less like cloud that it doesn't have b'chal v'hakachazina dislay. Go check it has. Ella d'lei mitzvah. Must be that he means that it doesn't come treif with it. That also doesn't make sense. That whatever we have by the behema, you have by oif. Yes, and the only difference is that the oif has one more if the skull was broken without a perforation of the krum shel bayach. Right? So vaistois, whatever you have by behema, you have by oif. So again, there's a lot of shmuz about this. How do you compare? We don't compare. In other words, and there's no question about it that a aver that a oif doesn't have is not a kasha on this trephis. But okay, there's a lot of shmuz about this. What's considered what would be a kasha on Levi's klal? What would not be a kasha on Levi's klal? But this has a reya, and if it has a reya and that one has a reya, so it should be a problem. Ella ein loy limpo v'loy lichmor. We want to say that when Chizkiya said ein reya ba'oif, he doesn't mean that it doesn't have one. It has one, but there is a concept of by oif that if it falls, there's a chashash. You have to be chayshish that it was perforated, or if it went into hot, you have to be chayshish that maybe it turned green. You have to go be baidik. Over here, not. Over here, you don't have to be chayshish. By the ray, you don't. All the rest of the b'nei me'ayin you have to check, but not limpo v'lichmor. My timer. What would be the reason that there shouldn't be a problem? What would be the reason that there shouldn't be a problem of limpo v'lichmor by the ray of oif? My timer. Because he has that extra protection, like we said. By a behema, it's very thin, right? On the way, what it's protecting, it's lying on the ray like this. So memela, if there's any sort of a trauma or heat, it's very close to the ray. Masha enkein by a oif, since it's like this, so it keeps it far away from. It has that extra protection. All it has the length of the. I guess we would call it the longer side of the tzalois that keeps the reya away, and therefore it has that protection, right? Frank the Gemara, that can't be a pshat in Chizkiya. Why? Because Chizkiya said ein reya ba'oif, right? Good. And what did Rabbi Yochanan say? Yesh lekol shalveret, right? Right? Frank, you are. V'amid Amar Rabbi Yochanan yesh lekol shalveret bein agafayim michlal deChizkiya savar delesle. So Vaistos Chizkiya clearly holds that it doesn't have. What was the conversation? Otherwise, what was Rabbi Yochanan's counter? If he was talking alom de shavart that it's ein limpo v'lichmor, so what's Rabbi Yochanan say? Yesh bein agafayim. Well, we always knew that there was. Ella. Amri b'marava mishmei de Rabbi Yossi Rab Chanina midvarav shel Beribi, from the words of Beribi, the great. Over here was stressing that Chizkiah was a grace Talmud Chacham. Beribi nikar she'enei baka b'tana goyim. We could tell that he's not very familiar with chickens. Yeah. And he doesn't bother with eating just chicken. He goes straight for the beef. Yeah. And Rashi says Loshen b'dichusa. Loshen b'dichusa is a joke. And the Drisha, this is the problem with the sugya, and the Drisha doesn't get the joke, because the Drisha wants to know. So kipshuta, when you read this Gemara, Chizkiah said ein reya loif, and we know that it has a reya. And Chizkiah said it because he didn't know what he's talking about, because he doesn't eat tarnagod. What's the kasha? So how in the world could Chizkiah say ein reya loif without knowing? That's a bomb kasha. A bomb kasha. Yeah? There's a lot of pshatim in this. How do you read the Gemara? Chizkiah went ahead and said ein reya loif, and he was wrong. He was dead wrong. Yeah? Zok the Prisha, a gewaltige Wort. He says like this: Chizkiah had a Kabbalah ein reya loif, and he thought that the pshat ein reya loif meant that it doesn't have one, because he was loy market ein market b'tar negoyim. But the real Kabbalah of ein reya loif was taka loy limpo v'loy lichmo. Like Tosha says that we paskin taka, that there's no problem with limpo v'lichmo by the reya. But he wasn't makir, so he misunderstood what the Kabbalah was ein reya loif. That's the mahalach that the Prisha wants to say. The Chassam Sofer says it's a different word, that ein reya loif means it doesn't have the unois, because it doesn't have. The Rambam says it doesn't have all the different pieces. It's just one connection. I want to say a different pshat. If you look in Rashi, very interesting what Rashi says. Rashi says, "Ein ragul echel tarnagolim lefikach lo yada im yesh lo reya." What do you mean im yesh lo reya? What do you mean im? He didn't say lo yada im. He said ein lo yada shei yesh lo.
He didn't know if there's a reya.
Wait, he didn't know if there is, and so he said that it doesn't have. He said ein reya loif. What's the im? Doesn't lo yoda im yesh lo reya is mashma that he didn't know if it has? He didn't know if it has, but he said it doesn't. Ein reya life. What I'm trying to say is, you could go. I'm saying. Naharu Pashta, like we're going to see in the Gemara soon. But anyway, I want to say like this: that the pshat is with Taiching that Chizkiah was not saying it boyfriend vaday now. When he said Chizkiah ein reya life, he was asking Biloshan Tmiyah. Rabbi Yechon, no, yesh loy, no. Rabbi Yechon said to Ibalik, Chizkiah ein reya life. Are you sure that there's a reya life? And Rabbi Yechon, yesh loy. But now we're teaching that Chizkiah never said it bevadei. Hitaka didn't say it bevadei. He was never saying it beloshin. He was never saying a declarative statement that it's ein reya loif. Because if he was saying ein reya loif, what was Rabbi Yechon answering? So he was saying ein reya loif. There's a reya loif, and on that they told him. Rabbi Yechon said yesh loif yesh nekel shel vered ben agafayim. Yeah, go look at it and you'll see it's there. But the Gemara now is coming to that Chizkiah was not saying a declarative statement. Okay? You like it? Okay, good. Right. Sagt mal weiter. Okay. Yeah. Amar Avuna Amar. Oh, okay. Amar Avuna Amar Rav. Oh, but what's important to remember is that Rabbi Yehuda said b'shem Rav. And this is going to be negeh for the Hemshech of the Sugya, that Rabbi Yehuda said b'shem Rav that shmutas yerach ba'oif is treifa. Shmutas yerach ba'oif is treifa, which we explained is that thigh bone was dislocated from the spine, right? From the place where it's attached to to the place where it's attached, right? Now we have a member from Rav Huna Amar Rav. It's also b'shem Rav, but it's Rav Huna Amar Rav. Shmutas Yarach Ba'oif is Ksheira. So Rabbi bar Rav Huna told his father Rav Huna, for Rabbanan the Osum Pumpadisa, right? Amru, the Rabbanan that came from Pumpadisa, and they came and they said b'shem Rabbi Yehuda, who is from Pumpadisa. Amru Rabbi Yehuda mishmei the Rav Amar Shmutas Yarach Ba'oif Treifa, which is the member that we started with, right? So in other words, what did Rav say? Did Rav say Shmutas Yarach Ba'oif is Treifa or it's Ksheira? That's what we're going to have a whole Amar Gemara, all different shittas about the Shmutas Yarach Ba'oif if the oif is dislocated at that point. Amalei B'ri. Even though Rabbi Yehuda saying B'shmei the Rav that Rav passled, no. B'ri Nahara upashte. So what does it mean Nahara upashte? What does Rav hold? Right. So Rashi explains like this: the river comes down, and then when it splits off, you can have two different branches. One of them is very rapids, and the other one is nice and calm. So same thing over here. Rav showed up to Pumpadisa, and they had been answering it. So even though Rav holds his egg in the sheet that it's kosher, but he agreed to them, and he wasn't going to go be over on their isser, and therefore he said it's treifa over there in Pumpadisa. But Rav's real sheet is that it's ksheira. That is how Rashi explains narrow pashte over here, and that's the word. But so Rav Huna is claiming that even though Rabbi Yehuda says it's treifa, it's really ksheira. Also Rab Abba Ashkechel Rabbi Yomi Abba. So Rab Abba. Remember all these names because they're going to come up again in the next part of the story. Also Rab Abba Ashkechel Rabbi Yomi Abba. So Rab Abba met Rabbi Yirmiyah Ba'aba, the Kabadik b'Tzumas Hagidim. He was checking the Tzumas Hagidim. Where's the Tzumas Hagidim? Tzumas Hagidim is much lower, right? Here we're talking about the Tzumas Hagidim, which is not. We're talking about the joint of the thigh bone to the spine. Now we're talking about below not the thigh bone, the pulka on the bottom of the pulka. So we're talking about mamish. We're talking about two joints lower. And Rabbi was being bothered with Tzumas Hagidim, all those 13 Gidim that we discussed. Amalei, Lamarkuli, he started checking the Tzumas Hagidim. The Rav Huna Amar Rav Shmutas Yarach Ba'oif Ksheira. Even if the Yarach, even two joints higher, if it was dislocated, it's fine. Amalei, I don't know. I know I have to check the Tzumas Hagidim because I have a Mishnah. The Mishnah again in the 4th parak. If a behema was if it cut below the Tzumas Hagidim, the akuva lamata from that joint and under it ksheira. Min akuva lamayla psula. We'll see. Sometimes it's kosher, sometimes it's puzzle on the min akuva lamayla. If it's broken and dislocated, or it's broken and stayed in the same place. V'chein shenitel Tzumas Hagidim. That if the Tzumas Hagidim were removed, it's treifa by a behema. V'amar Rav lo v'chein ba'oif. So I have a member from Rav. You're asking me from Rav Lagabi a dislocated arm, but I'm talking about a Tzumas Hagidim, and Rav said Tzumas Hagidim is a problem v'chein l'oif. It's a problem v'chein l'treifa. V'chein ba'oif that it's a treifa. Ihachi kash de Rav ad Rav. How could Rav be matir by dislocation and aser by Tzumas Hagidim? Ishtik. So he was quiet. Amalei. So he said, Delmashani la ben shmuta lechatucha. Maybe there's a difference. Maybe it's Nishkin Grace Akasha. Shmuta, dislocated, is a problem. But if it's broke, if it's ripped, if the Tzumas Hagidim is ripped, it's a problem. Amaleva. And he remembers, he says, you're the one that's saying this Nayish Tikkel Torah, and maybe Rav is B'chalkim Tishmut L'chatucha. B'ferish Amarav. Shmuta, Kesheira, Chatucha, Psula. Taki, you're right. That's Mamash Mefurish what Rav has said. That Shmuta, dislocated thigh, is kosher. But if the Tzumas Hagidim is ripped, much lower up, much lower it's psula. And Rav Feiros, that's the mitzvah, that you could have something that you cut it over here and it's going to die, and if you cut it much higher, much closer to its source of life, and it still lives. So now we can have most of the same players. Who was the one that had this conversation? Was Rab Abba. He was the one that had this conversation. Rab Abba was the one that came and he saw Rabbi Yirmiyah Ba'amba being badlik with Tzumas Hagidim, and he asked him the kasha from Shmutas Hayerach. Now Rab Abba came to Eretz Yisrael. Kisalk Rab Abba Ashkechel Rab Zera. He met Rab Zera. Now both Rab Zera and Rab Abba were both from Bavel, and they both had gone to Eretz Yisrael, right? But Rab Zera was there first, and Rab Abba is showing up now. And he comes and he finds Reb Zera darshaning. What did Reb Zera say? The Yosef Amar, Amrav Huna Amarav, Shmutas Yerach Boif Treifa. That Rav Huna is saying in the name of Rav that it's Treifa. Amalei, so Reb Abba that's showing up second, he's saying, no. Chai Dimar, you messed it. Rav Huna was Chayzer, because Rav Huna is saying, like we said, like we had in the second Shtukul Gemara, that he's saying it's Kershera. From the time that you came here, moving to Amid Beis, Havalon Pischem Peh Kameid Rav Huna. We had a whole conversation with Rav Huna, and we Vishayiline, and we asked him for Amalon Shmutas Yerach Boif Kshera. That Shmutas Yerach is Boif is Kshera. So you're wrong. Rav Huna holds in the name of Rav that it's kosher, not that it's possible. And then he's going to say over the whole story that happened. And Rav Abba says, and not only that, let me tell you what else happened. I met Rabbi Abba that he was checking the Tzumas Hagidim. And I asked him, the whole Gemara that we had before. I mean, this is the whole story that Rav Abba is relating to Reb Zera, the whole story that we just had. And I asked him, how could you think that Shmutz Hagidim is a problem? We have a member from Rav Huna, the Shmutz Yerach Boif is Kshera, and Amalei, and Rabbi Abba answered me, Amali, he answered me back, I don't know what you want. Tzumas Hagidim is a problem, because I have a member from Rav, that Tzumas Hagidim is a problem from V'chein Loif. Amalei, no, Masisi Adana, Behema, Shnechtachu Raglau, Menaku V'lamata, Kshera, Menaku V'lamayla Psula, V'chein Shnitl Tzumas Hagidim is by Behema, V'amarav Allah, V'chein Boif. And the Amri lay, Rabab is saying, and I asked him, so what are we going to do? I have a member from Vuna Marav that Shmuta is Kshera, and Rav said that Tzumas Hagidim is a problem. Ishtik. So Rabbi was quiet. Actually, Rabbi Abba says, and then I wanted to posit a new shtickle Torah. I wanted to say a gewaltige chiddush. V'dil mashani leila Rav ben Shmutel Chatucha. I wanted to be mechadash. There's a difference between Shmutel Chatucha. That was my massive chiddush. V'amali, and Rabbi Abba answered me back. This is mamish the whole Gemara over. V'amali, and he answered me back. V'at mifashish shmait. He remembered the shtickle Torah. V'at mifashish shmait said the Rav. You're the one that's come. You think this is your major chiddush? Beferish Rav. Rav Taka said Shmuta Kisheira Chatucha Psula. So now Reb Zera finally Reb Abba's finally finished the ganze shtickle Torah. He's okay. That's the story. So I have it from multiple sources that Rav Huna holds, that Rav holds, that Shmutas Hayerach is Kshera. Nu, was sagst du? What do you have to add to this conversation? So he told him, Hachi Amar Rav Chia Bar Ashi Amar Rav Shmutas Hayerach Boif Treifa. No. I have a Chia Bar Ashi Amar Rav that Shmutas Hayerach Boif Treifa. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yidi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Shmutas Hayerach Boif Treifa. V'amar Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yidi. And Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yidi said that even though Rabbi Yochanan holds Shmutas Hayerach Boif is Treifa, but Rabbi Yaakov Bar Yidi says if Rabbi Yochanan would show up to a town that they're moderate, he would not be phased. Yeah? Why? Because even though he answers, because Reb Chanina said in the name of Rebbe, Shmutas Yerech Boif Kshera. This machlokes is an alta machlokes is already coming from the Tanoi. That Reb Chanina said in the name of Rebbe that Shmutas Yerech Boif is Kshera. V'tarne goyles hoysel Reb Chanina shenishmet Yerech Shala. Reb Chanina had such a bird, such a tarnagel that Tak was nishmet Yerech Shala. V'viofnei Rebbe, and he brought in front of Rebbe v'yatiroloi. And Rebbe was matir it. So what did Chanina do when you have a chicken that Rebbe was matir? You think you're going to eat it? This is a dollar from the Rebbe. He's not gonna do. He didn't eat it. Umalcha Reb Chanina. He salted it. V'hava moriba la'halachal tamidim. Zehetali Rebbe, and he preserved it to show it off to everybody. Zehetali Rebbe. So Lemaisa what? So Rebbe holds that there. So now we have a whole bunch of shita. Some holds treifa, some holds heta. The last. One more shtickle Gemara, and then we're going to finish off. The next Gemara is really the famous sugya of treifa, that if a treifa lasts for 12 months, which we're going to have to be mamshech on tomorrow, but let's just see this shtickle Gemara. We're going to bring into this Gemara on really Zaitik in this Brisa. We're going to bring in Klar that what Shmutas Yerech Boif is Treifa. Why? What's the halacha if you have a hole, not a slit, a hole in the windpipe? That if it's as big as Isataki, it's Treifa. And he asked him, there was a sheep, a reichel, right, a mother sheep, that Hoysa B'Shchuna Seinu now enabled. She nicked the Kana Shalom that got this hole in its ear pipe. Also like Krum Shalkana, and they made some sort of a stuff. They took a piece of reed and stuffed it up. The Hoysa, and it lived. So how can you tell me it's a treifa? Amaloi. And this is in this conversation is where we're bringing in the halacha of Shmutas Yerech. Amaloi v'altoat somich. That you can ask a kasha. V'aloi halacha revachas b'yisol. And this is weird. So halacha revachas b'Yisrael shmutas yerech b'oif treifa. That's really addressing the question that our sugi came, but we're bringing the whole thing. V'tana goes hoysler Shimon chalafta. Shimon chalafta had a time goes shenish b'ta yerech shala v'asulei sharfufis shalkana. They gave it some kind of a splint, and v'chois, and it lived. That it must be that over here in both of these cases, Sai by the Krumi Shokana and Sai by the Nishmata Yerach Shalah, it was both, even though it was Choysa, the Kabbalah of Choysa was only Choysa within 12 months, but it would never have lasted more than 12 months. And Memela, but Lamaisa Mefurish now in this Gemara that what? The Halacha Revachas B'Yisrael, Shmutas Yerach Ba'oifis Treifa, and that's how we paskin. And that's what's in the Ger. Lamaisa, from this Gemara, the Gemara says that it's impossible that it lived more than 12 months, and this is going to be the machlokes. We're going to pick it up with, tomorrow, Be'ez Hashem. This machlokes legabi if it's shaykh b'metzias b'chlal for a treifa to live more than 12 months.
Good.